I think it'd be fair to say that the questions in general in 2011 were more difficult than the ones we saw in 2010. But I guess the curve works it all out at the end, so not that big of a deal. So, fourth question was this one here called RouteCipher. It's got a two-dimensional array, so matrix. This matrix is instantiated in the constructor, so we don't have to worry about that. A lot of matrix problems, it seems like they want you to set it up in the constructor, but they've done that for us. And they've also handed us num rows and num cols to tell us the dimensions of the matrix. Those apparently have been initialized as well. So the first job for us is to take a string, take letters from it one at a time, and place them into the matrix in row major order. So we'll just keep taking a letter one at a time, row major order. I guess the trick is if they give us too few letters, so let's say the matrix has like 50 places in it, but they only give us 40 letters, we have to fill the remaining 10 spots with uppercase A's. Or they might give us a string that's too big to fit into the matrix, and then at that point we just ignore the letters at the end of the string, and we don't even bother or worry about putting them in. So like in their example here in part A, you'll see that first they gave you 12 letters counting the spaces, 15 size array, 3 by 5, so it had to be filled with 3 uppercase A's at the end. In the other example, they gave you a length 16 string counting the spaces. Notice that the T was omitted from the end of that matrix, and that's fine. We just don't even worry about it. And they were nice enough to give the kids a hint that year. They said substring k plus 1 gives you a 1-letter character string, so that was nice of them. They didn't really have to do that. And so if we look at part A, I guess here's my nested for loop. So technically in 2020, you shouldn't have to write that because we're not going to see a 2D array according to the modified exam. This is a void method. I'm not looking to return anything. I'm just putting the letters into the matrix. When I'm done, I'm done. And I went ahead and just made a separate index here called K. There's a way you could do that from the loop variables with some tricky math, but you don't really need to. I just made like a separate K variable to walk across the string starting at 0. And I just went ahead and I just said, well, let's just assume that we're going to put an uppercase A into the matrix unless there are letters left in the string, right? We don't want to go out of bounds. They told us we might not give you enough letters. So before you go to take a substring from str, make sure that you can, right? Verify that K is in bounds before attempting to take a substring. Otherwise, we'll fall back on the capital A. Once we have our substring, make sure to advance K on your own since the loop is not progressing it. And then go ahead and put your letter into the letter block, the doubly subscripted array with R and C. Okay, and I gave it the same 3 examples that you saw on the notes there. So surprise, meet me at noon. Notice that there was 3 uppercase A's at the end. And then meet me at midnight, there wasn't enough room there, so the T got omitted. And that's okay. According to their rules, that's fine. All right, and so if we go on to part B, this part was a little bit trickier. So part B, I think the hardest part here is probably just understanding and trusting this method called encrypt block. The kids that took this test, they didn't know how this method was going to work. They knew they had to call it. It says so right in the directions, and they had to trust it to do what they said it would. This is not something you were supposed to learn about prior to the test. This was not in your book. It's not in the notes. This is just something they made up. They didn't tell us what it was, or they tell us what it's going to do, but not how it's going to do it. And we just have to trust it. This method, if you call it, you don't give it anything. It's parameterless, and it gives you back a string. We're writing code inside of the RouteCipher class where this method is declared. So when we call it, we just call it. We don't need to put anything in front of it. You can put the word this, but you don't need to. Okay, so why do we need this method? Well, in part B, they want us to use this method to make an encrypted message. An encrypted message is just a strung together string of encrypted blocks. So if they give you a message like meet at midnight, there's 16 length 16, counting the spaces. But this time the letter block's only 2 by 3. That only takes 6 of the 16 letters. That just takes, MEET space A, the first 6. They want you to put those letters into a fill block and then make an encrypt block out of them, which again, I don't know how they did it, and I don't really care. I just know that if I had a fill block set up and I called encrypt block, it would give me back a string of an encrypted sequence of letters, okay? And then would then repeat that process until I had encrypted all of the original characters of the string. And then all of those encrypt blocks get concatenated together. Okay, so step 1 is call fill block, all right, let it do its job, right? Then call encrypt block, let it do its job, and then just keep a running total of all these encrypted messages, just keep concatenating them together. So the second time up, I got the next 6, and the third time up, I got the next 6. Notice that those 2 capital A's got put in there because if you're doing 2 by 3 letter blocks, that's 6 plus 6 plus 6, that's 18 spaces, right? But we only started with 16 characters, so those final 2 got filled with capital A's. And we'll just repeat this as many times as needed. So I'll need to set up a loop structure where I can keep going and figuring out, like how far do I need to go. You could do that with a for loop. Just consider setting up the step expression so that you step plus equal to num rows times num cows. My solution I'm going to show you has a while loop, but it's not that big of a deal. And then assume that fill block and encrypt block work as specified. Solutions that re-implement the functionality of one or both of these methods will not receive full credit. We've got to understand that when we take our AP exam. This is not a time to show off. This is not a time to say, oh, I finished the problem in 10 minutes and they gave me 25, so I'm going to write my own encrypt block method. That is not what they want you to do. And it doesn't matter if you wrote the greatest encrypt block method ever. You would still get points deducted from your exam because you didn't follow directions. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. They want to see if you can call this method. That's what they mean by methods and control structures. Can you call methods that maybe you had no understanding of prior to the day of the test, okay? So when we look at my encrypt message here, okay, I just tried to follow those same 3 steps. Like right here's those 3 steps I was talking about. Call fill block, okay, let it do its work. Call encrypt block, let it do its work. It gives you back a string. Fill block is void, so I just called it. Encrypt block returns a string, so I put it into a string. And then I just concatenated that to whatever string I had previously started with. I started with nothing, okay? Each time I run, I'm going to add some letters to it. All right, I said I was going to keep doing this as long as there was a message. Now, why would there not be a message eventually? Well, I decided that I would just kind of chop letters off as needed. Now, again, I could see a pretty easy way to write a for loop here too, just depending how you did like your step expression. But this should be fine here. But maybe I overcomplicated things. I don't know. So anyway, I just figured as long as I got letters left, I'll chop them off from the front, or I'll set it to the empty string at the end. And yeah, if you want to practice writing your for loops, go for it. All right. But I ran this here, and you can see you're going to get like the exact same message here, MTE, EATI, and then notice how it ends with like that GAHA. That's like the same thing we're seeing right here. Okay. So yeah, it was going through that same example, and it was able to encrypt it the same way. All right. Good luck. Try writing a for loop here. See if you can get the same thing to work.